I never thought my own sister would try to ruin my life. I mean, we weren't exactly close, but I never imagined she'd go this far. If I had known back then what kind of person she truly was, I would have cut ties with her long before she had the chance to drag me into her mess. But hindsight is 20/20, right? Back then I was just a clueless guy in my early 20s thinking that family meant something, thinking that no matter what, we had each other's backs. How wrong I was. Let's start from the beginning. My name is Ethan, and at the time, I was 22, living in a small apartment and juggling college classes with a part-time job at a local hardware store. My parents were well off, but my dad always believed in teaching me the value of hard work, so I paid my own way as much as I could. My younger sister, Olivia, on the other hand, was the golden child. She was 18, fresh out of high school, and had our mother wrapped around her finger. Olivia had a talent for manipulation. She could twist any situation to her advantage, and my mom fell for it every single time. Our dad, however, saw right through her. He'd call her out on her lies and schemes, but my mom would always swoop in to shield her. No matter what she did, she never faced any real consequences. That all changed one fateful weekend. Our parents had planned a trip to Aspen for some much-needed relaxation. They left Olivia in charge of the house, and they told her explicitly, no parties. That should have been the end of it. But Olivia, she never cared about rules. The moment our parents' car was out of sight, she started planning the party of the year. I had no idea about any of this until she called me that afternoon. I remember the call vividly. "Ethan, I need a favor," she said, her voice sweet, almost too sweet. I already knew I wasn't going to like whatever came next. "What is it?" I asked, already dreading her answer. "I need you to buy alcohol for my party tonight." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Yeah, not happening." Her tone changed. In an instant. "Come on, Ethan, you're 22, you can buy it, and I'll even introduce you to someone. An easy girl, if you know what I mean." I nearly dropped my phone. "Did you seriously just offer to pay me with a girl?" she huffed. "Oh my God, you're such a prude. Just buy the drinks, okay? I'll pay you back." "No," I said firmly. "Not only is that illegal, but you're being reckless. You shouldn't have told people there'd be alcohol." "Oh, stop being dramatic. It's only illegal if you narc. Olivia, I'm not buying you alcohol. End of story." She screamed at me, called me every name in the book, and hung up. I thought that was the end of it. She'd figure something else out, and I'd go about my weekend in peace. But Olivia had a way of turning every problem into a catastrophe, and this was no exception. That night she threw the party anyway, a massive one. Kids from all over town showed up, lured in by the promise of free booze and no parental supervision. Olivia had gotten into our dad's locked liquor cabinet, probably picking the lock or breaking it open, and helped herself to his expensive collection. And then the inevitable happened. Someone called the cops. The police arrived and chaos erupted. Drunken teenagers scattered, some running down the street, others trying to hide in closets. Olivia, completely wasted, did what she did best. She found a scapegoat. The next morning I woke up to loud banging on my apartment door. My stomach twisted. I had no idea what was coming, but I could feel it wasn't good. I opened the door to find 2 police officers standing there, serious expressions on their faces. "Ethan Carter?" one of them asked. I nodded, feeling my heart hammer in my chest. "Yeah? You're under arrest for supplying alcohol to minors." I blinked, sure I had misheard them. "What? That's insane. I wasn't even there." But they weren't interested in listening. Before I knew it, I was in handcuffs, being led out of my apartment while my neighbors watched in silent curiosity. My head spun. This had to be a mistake. There was no way this was really happening. At the station, they interrogated me, asking where I had gotten the alcohol, how I had transported it, and how much I had charged the kids. I kept repeating the same thing. I wasn't there. I didn't buy anything. I had no idea what they were talking about, but they weren't buying. Then they told me the worst part. "We have a statement from your sister, Olivia Carter. She says you provided the alcohol and encouraged her to throw the party." I felt the world tilt. Olivia had set me up. She had actually lied to the police to save herself. My own sister had betrayed me. As I sat in that cold interrogation room, staring at the wall, I realized one thing. This was just the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. Sitting in that cold interrogation room, I felt like my world had just collapsed. My own sister, Olivia, had set me up, lied to the cops, painted me as the villain, and now they were treating me like a criminal. I tried to keep my cool, but my mind raced. "Look," I said, trying to reason with the officer across the table. "I wasn't even there. I was at home all night. Check the cameras at my apartment complex. My car never left the parking lot. The officer gave me a long, unreadable look before glancing at his partner. "We'll check," he said, his tone giving nothing away. "But right now all we have is her statement and the fact that alcohol was present at the party," I scoffed. "And you automatically believe her? She's the one who threw the party. She stole the alcohol from our dad's locked cabinet. Why would I supply her with booze when she already had access to it?" They exchanged glances again, and I knew then that I wasn't going to walk out of there anytime soon. I spent the night in a holding cell. The reality of it didn't hit me until I was lying on that rock-hard bench, staring up at the dim ceiling. My own sister had done this to me. And my mother, oh God, my mother. I already knew whose side she'd take. She always took Olivia's. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined all the ways this could go wrong. What if they pinned everything on me? What if my parents refused to believe me? What if my sister doubled down on her lies? The next morning my parents arrived to bail me out. My dad's face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with anger. My mom, however, didn't look angry. She looked disappointed, and not at Olivia, at me. "We'll talk at home," my dad said gruffly as we walked out of the station. The car ride home was silent. My mom didn't even look at me. I clenched my fists, knowing exactly what was coming. When we got home, I barely had time to step inside before my mom exploded. "I can't believe you, Ethan," she yelled, her voice shaking with emotion. "How could you do this to your sister?" I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Are you serious right now?" I shot back. "I didn't do anything. Olivia threw the party. Olivia stole Dad's alcohol. Olivia got caught and now she's trying to blame me." "She wouldn't do that," my mom snapped, crossing her arms. "She told us everything. You bought the alcohol. And now she's the one facing charges because of you." I let out a bitter laugh. "You're unbelievable. You believe her over me? Again?" I turned to my dad. "Dad, please tell me you don't actually believe this." My father's face was grim. "I saw Olivia's Facebook post," he said. "She started inviting people the moment we left for Aspen." "I believe you, Ethan." My mom whirled on him. "So you're just going to take his side? What about Olivia? This could ruin her future." Dad's jaw tightened. "She tried to ruin his future." For the first time, my mom hesitated. I could see the conflict in her eyes. She loved both of us, but Olivia had always been her baby, her favorite. And now her perfect golden daughter was on the verge of serious legal trouble. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Look, Mom, if you don't believe me, just check the evidence. My car never left my apartment complex that night. The security cameras will prove it. My bank records will show I never bought any alcohol. And if that's not enough, check the damn front door camera at this house. My car wasn't in the driveway, because I wasn't here." My dad nodded. "I already made a few calls. We're getting the footage." That seemed to shake my mom a little, but she still refused to fully back down. "Even if Olivia made a mistake, do you really want her to have a criminal record? Can't you just take the blame, just this once, for her future?" I felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. "You cannot be serious." "She's your sister, Ethan," my mom pleaded. "This could follow her forever. If you just say you made a mistake." I took a step back, shaking my head in disbelief. "You want me to lie and ruin my own life? Do you even hear yourself right now?" She opened her mouth to respond, but my dad cut her off. "That's enough," he said, his voice sharp. "This conversation is over. We're not letting Ethan take the fall for something he didn't do." My mother looked like she wanted to argue, but my dad's tone left no room for debate. She let out a shaky breath and stormed upstairs, leaving me and my father in tense silence. He turned to me. "Don't worry, we'll clear this up." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But Olivia had already sunk her claws into this lie, and I knew she wasn't going to let go easily. That night, I got a text from her, "Olivia, you could have just taken the blame. Would have been easier for everyone. But now, you're gonna regret this, big brother." I clenched my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, Olivia's text echoed in my head. "You're gonna regret this." What was she planning? What else could she possibly do to make this worse? By morning I had my answer. Dad wasted no time gathering evidence to clear my name. He had always been a man of action, and now that Olivia had crossed the line, he was determined to expose the truth. He got his lawyer involved, and within hours, we had the security footage from my apartment complex, and there it was, undeniable proof. My car had been parked in the same spot all night. I had never left. That should have been enough, right? Case closed, except Olivia wasn't done lying. When my dad confronted her, she switched tactics. Fine, she said with a dramatic sigh. Maybe Ethan didn't buy the alcohol, but he gave it to me. He already had it at his apartment. It was infuriating. She wasn't even trying to make her lies believable anymore. My dad wasn't buying it. Olivia, you're digging yourself deeper. But my mom? Oh, she hesitated again. It's possible, she murmured, avoiding my eyes. I nearly lost it, right then and there. You think I'd just magically had enough alcohol to supply an entire party? I snapped. Check my apartment. Go ahead. I have, 3 cheap beers in my fridge? Where's your proof? That seemed to shake her a little. My dad, on the other hand, was done playing games. He had already arranged for our home's security footage to be reviewed. The camera at the front door showed that my car never pulled into the driveway that day. But Olivia? She had been caught on camera breaking into Dad's liquor cabinet. My Sue. Dad's face darkened when he saw the footage. He didn't say a word. He just turned the laptop toward my mother. Silence. A long, painful silence. Then finally my mom whispered, Olivia. Please tell me you didn't do this. But Olivia wasn't about to admit defeat. Instead, she doubled down. I had no choice, she shrieked. Ethan was going to let me take the fall for everything. He owed me. I blinked. Owed you? For what? What delusional fantasy are you living in? She stomped her foot like a spoiled child. You've always had it easier. Dad respects you. He's never respected me. You never had to work for his approval. I have to fight for it every day. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was this really what she had convinced herself? That I was somehow privileged while she had suffered? Dad rubbed his temples, trying to stay calm. Olivia, your brother didn't do anything wrong. You're the one who— I didn't do anything wrong, she screamed, and that's when it hit me. She actually believed it. She had lied so many times that she had started believing her own delusions. My mom sat down, burying her face in her hands. I don't know if she was more devastated by the truth, or by the realization that her favorite child wasn't as innocent as she had always believed. Then, the final blow came. My dad's lawyer returned with new information. The cops had started questioning some of the kids from the party. Turns out Olivia had been running her mouth, bragging about how she had stolen the liquor, how she had planned the whole thing, and then, the cherry on top, one of the kids had recorded her. A full-blown video of Olivia laughing about how she would pin it on her dumbass brother if things went south. My dad played the video right there in the living room. My mom looked like she had been slapped. She turned to Olivia, eyes wide with horror. Tell me that's not real. Olivia was cornered. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had nothing left, nothing but anger. Her mask slipped completely. The fake tears, the innocent act, it was all gone. Instead, she just glared at me. This is your fault, she hissed. I laughed bitterly. How? How is this my fault, Olivia? You stole the alcohol. You threw the party. You lied to the cops, and somehow I'm the villain? She shook her head, her expression twisted with rage. You just don't get it, do you? You've always had everything. I just wanted something for myself. Dad had had enough. You're done, Olivia, he said, his voice cold. I'm hiring a separate lawyer. You're going to own up to this in court. That set her off. You're picking him over me? She shrieked at my father. You picked this path, he said simply. And with that, the golden child had finally fallen. From grace, Olivia stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Mom was in tears. She turned to my dad, voice trembling. She's still our daughter. Dad's expression was unreadable. And Ethan is our son. And for years, you've let her get away with everything while he paid the price. Mom didn't respond. She just wiped her face and walked upstairs without another word. I let out a deep breath. What happens now? I asked my dad. He looked at me, his face weary. Now we fix what she tried to break. But Olivia wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. That night I got another text. Olivia, you think this is over? Think again. I clenched my teeth. She had lost everything, but she still wasn't going down without a fight. I knew Olivia wasn't going to let this go. She had spent years manipulating her way out of trouble, and now that her lies had finally caught up with her, she was desperate. But I didn't expect what came next. The morning after she stormed out, my dad got a call from the police. Mr. Carter, we need you to come down to the station, the officer said. Your daughter Olivia has filed a statement claiming that Ethan physically assaulted her last night. I nearly dropped my coffee. What? I shouted, grabbing the phone. From my dad's hand. That's a lie. I haven't even seen her since she ran out of the house. I understand, sir, but we need to follow protocol, the officer said, his tone neutral. She's claiming she has bruises as proof. I was shaking with rage. Olivia had just hit a new low. Dad and I drove to the station where we found Olivia sitting in an interview room, fake tears streaming down her face. She was holding her arm as if it was in pain. A police officer stood beside her, jotting down notes. When she saw me, her face twisted into a sick grin for just a second before she put the mask back on. I never thought Ethan would actually hit me, she whimpered. I wanted to scream. The officer turned to me. Ethan, do you have an alibi for last night? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Yeah, I was home the entire time. My dad can confirm that. And so can the security cameras at our house. The officer hesitated. We'll need to check those. Dad crossed his arms. Go ahead. We'll wait. It took them 2 hours to verify the footage. 2 agonizing hours where I sat across from Olivia, watching her smirk every time the officers weren't looking. She thought she had won. Thought she could frame me again. Then finally one of the officers walked back in, holding a printed report. Well, Olivia, he said, his voice much less friendly than before. The security footage shows Ethan never left his house last night. She blinked. What? The officer sighed. And when we examined your supposed injuries, they were inconsistent with a fresh assault. There was no swelling, no real bruising. You painted makeup on your skin to make it look worse. I sat back, watching the color drain from her face. She had lost. Again. Dad stepped forward. I want to press charges for false accusations, he said, his voice firm. The officer nodded. We'll be filing an official report. Olivia, you're free to go, for now. But I wouldn't try something like this again. Olivia stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. This isn't fair, she shrieked. He's ruining my life. I laughed dryly. No, Olivia, you ruined your life. She stormed out of the station, leaving us behind. I turned to my dad. What now? He sighed. Now? We let the law deal with her. But Olivia still wasn't done. That night, she showed up at my apartment. I heard the banging on my door around midnight. Hard, desperate pounding. I groaned, pulling myself out of bed, half expecting it to be a neighbor with a complaint, but when I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. Olivia. Her eyes were wild, her hair a mess. She looked completely unhinged. Ethan, she screamed. Open the damn door. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to ignore her. But then, she started slamming her fist against the door even harder. I didn't want my neighbors calling the cops on me. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock on. Go home, Olivia. She shoved against the door, trying to force her way in. You owe me. You ruined my life, you selfish piece of... I slammed the door shut in her face. She screamed in frustration, kicking the door. You're nothing without this family. You think Dad's gonna hand everything to you? You're just a loser hiding behind his money. I ignored her. Then came the final blow. I should have never been the one to leave. You should have, she spat. If I had the chance to go back in time, I would have made sure you were the one who got kicked out. Or better yet, never born. At all. That hit me harder than I expected, but I refused to let her see it. Good night, Olivia, I said through the door. For a few seconds, she didn't move. Then she let out a hollow laugh. You'll regret this, she whispered. And then she was gone. The next day, I told my dad everything. She's getting desperate, I said. Who knows what she'll do next? Dad looked troubled. We'll have to be careful. Then, as if on cue, my mom walked into the room. I just got a call from Olivia, she said quietly. I stiffened. What does she want now? Mom hesitated. She says she's pregnant. Silence. My dad and I exchanged looks, both of us, waiting for the but. She says she wants to make amends, Mom continued. That she wants her baby to grow up knowing their grandparents. I exhaled sharply. She's lying. Mom looked torn. Maybe this is her way of making things right. Dad shook his head. Or maybe it's another trick. None of us knew the answer, but we were about to find out. I should have seen it coming. Olivia never accepted defeat, and when all else failed, she pulled the ultimate card. A baby. My dad and I sat in silence as my mom repeated the words. She says she's pregnant. I folded my arms. And you believe her? She took a test, Mom said, her voice soft like she wanted it to be true. It was positive. Dad let out a heavy sigh. That doesn't prove anything. It could be faked. Mom flinched. I know she's made mistakes, but this is different. This is a child, Ethan, our grandchild. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Mom, it's Olivia. She's lied about everything. Framing me, getting hit. Hell, she even tried to manipulate. Dad with fake tears. And now, conveniently, she's pregnant right when she needs to get back in your good graces? Mom looked down, her fingers twisting together. She says she wants to change. Dad scoffed. No, she wants back in the will. That was the ugly truth, wasn't it? Olivia wasn't stupid. She knew Dad had cut her off. She knew she wasn't getting a dime. But now, with a baby in the picture, she had leverage. Emotional leverage. She's coming over tomorrow, Mom said hesitantly. She wants to talk. I clenched my jaw. Fine, but I promise you she's up to something. And I was right. The next day, Olivia arrived, playing the role of a changed woman perfectly. She was dressed in soft pastels, hair done just right. And for the first time in years, she looked humble. It was an act. She walked inside with a small smile. Hi, she said, her voice unusually gentle. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I don't want my child to grow up without a family. Mom was already teary-eyed. Olivia. Dad and I stayed silent. She turned, to me sighing dramatically. Ethan, I know we've had our issues. Issues? I cut in, laughing dryly. You tried to ruin my life, Olivia. You framed me for a crime, lied to the police. And now you want to pretend none of that happened? Her lips pressed into a thin line. I regret all of that. Do you? I challenged. Or do you regret getting caught? Her gaze flickered, but she kept the act up. I am sorry, and I'm trying to fix things. Don't expect you to forgive me, but I do want my child to know their uncle and grandparents. She placed a protective hand over her stomach. My dad cut in. Who's the father? Olivia stiffened, just for a second. Then, she forced a soft smile. It's complicated, I snorted. You don't know, do you? Her jaw clenched. Of course I do. Dad leaned forward. We want a paternity test. That wiped the fake sincerity off her face. What? You heard me, Dad said. If this baby is really our grandchild, we'll help, but if you want our support, we need proof. Mom winced. Don't you think that's a bit much? No, Dad said firmly. I won't be manipulated again. Olivia's face darkened. I can't believe you, she hissed. I came here trying to make amends, and you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. You are a criminal, I shot back. She glared at me. Screw you. Then she turned to my mother, eyes brimming with crocodile tears. Mom, I thought you would understand, but I guess I was wrong. Mom faltered. Olivia, please. But Olivia was already grabbing her bag, storming toward the door. You're all heartless, she spat. You'd rather believe I'm a liar than trust that I've changed. Well, you know what? I don't need any of you. She slammed the door on her way out. Mom covered her face, trying to hold back tears. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. I just stared at the door. Something felt off. 3 days passed. Olivia hadn't contacted any of us, but we knew she wasn't gone for good. She never gave up that easily. And sure enough, she struck again. Dad got a call from an old friend in the legal field, someone who had helped Olivia get a job years ago. You should know, the man said. Olivia's been asking about estate laws, specifically about inheritance and loopholes. My dad's face went cold. She was looking for ways back into the will. I shook my head. She's that desperate? Dad frowned. Desperate people do stupid things. And stupid things, Olivia did. The very next day, she showed up at the house, again. But this time, she wasn't alone. She had a lawyer. Mom looked terrified. Olivia, what is this? Olivia smirked. A simple discussion. Her lawyer cleared his throat. My client is prepared to negotiate a fair settlement to ensure her unborn child is provided for in your estate. Dad narrowed his eyes. Are you trying to sue us? No, the lawyer said smoothly. We simply want to ensure that your grandchild has their rightful inheritance. I laughed. Rightful inheritance, you mean your rightful inheritance. Olivia's fake smile never wavered. I'm just looking out for my child. Dad's voice was deadly calm. You want a settlement? Fine, we'll agree to one condition. Olivia's eyes gleamed with victory. Go on. Dad leaned forward. You take a legally binding paternity test, and if the baby is not ours, you walk away with nothing. Olivia's face dropped. The lawyer hesitated. That seemed unnecessary. Dad smirked. No, I think it's very necessary. Mom finally spoke, her voice shaking. Olivia, are you even really pregnant? Olivia's mouth opened, then closed. Then she turned bright red. Dad stood up. That's what I thought. Olivia shot to her feet. You can all go to hell, she screamed. And then she ran out. For good. We never saw her again after that. A month later, we heard from mutual acquaintances that Olivia had quietly left town. No baby, no apology, no redemption arc. She vanished. Mom took it the hardest, but She finally accepted the truth. Olivia was never going to change. She was too far gone. As for me, I finally got my peace. Olivia spent her whole life trying to destroy mine, but in the end, she destroyed herself. For the first time in years, it felt like Olivia was truly gone. No calls, no texts, no manipulative schemes, just silence. It was unsettling. My mom spent the first few weeks in denial, constantly checking her phone, expecting Olivia to reach out. She even called some of Olivia's old friends, but no one had heard from her. It was as if she had simply vanished. And, honestly, I was fine with that. Dad, however, wasn't convinced this was over. "She's up to something," he said one night over dinner. "She always resurfaces when she needs something." But weeks turned into months, and still, nothing. It wasn't until 6 months later that Olivia made her grand return. But this time she didn't come back on her own terms. One evening, my dad got a call from a hospital. "Are you the father of Olivia Carter?" The voice on the other end asked. Dad's entire body went rigid. "Yes. She was admitted here 2 nights ago." Silence. Then, the bombshell. She gave birth. I nearly dropped my drink, Mom gasped. "She was actually pregnant?" The doctor continued. "She refused to give us any emergency contacts, but when she was discharged, she left the baby behind. Your daughter abandoned her child, Mr. Carter." No one spoke. We were in shock. It took a moment before Dad finally said, "We'll be there." The next morning, we arrived at the hospital. I don't know what I expected, but when we walked into the neonatal ward, my breath caught. A tiny baby girl lay in an incubator, peaceful and innocent. She had Olivia's eyes, and yet despite everything, I felt something shift inside me. This child wasn't Olivia. She was innocent. She had done nothing wrong. And now, because of my sister's selfishness, she was alone in the world. Mom was already in tears. "She just left her?" she whispered. The nurse nodded solemnly. She refused to even hold her. Dad rubbed his face. "Did she say anything?" "Before she left," the nurse hesitated, then sighed. "She said the baby was your problem now." I clenched my fists. Olivia had always been cold, but this was something else entirely. Dad turned to the doctor. "What happens now?" "She'll go into the foster system unless family steps in," the doctor explained. "Since Olivia named no father and the baby has no legal guardian, you, her grandparents, would be the next of kin." Mom's breath hitched. "Oh my God." Dad was quiet for a long moment, then he looked at me. "Ethan." I knew what he was going to ask before he said it, and I already knew my answer. I looked down at the tiny girl. She was so small, so helpless. She had no one. No one except us. I exhaled. "We can't let her go into the system." Mom burst into tears, hugging me. Dad placed a firm hand on my shoulder, and just like that, we made the decision. We were keeping her. The adoption process took time, but eventually it became official. She was ours. We named her Lena, a name completely separate from Olivia, a name that was hers. Raising her wasn't easy, but it was the best decision we ever made. She grew up surrounded by love, never knowing the chaos her mother had caused. And Olivia, she never came back. She never tried to contact us, never asked about, It was as if she had ceased to exist. Mom struggled with it for a long time, but eventually she let go. She focused on being the best grandmother she could be, pouring all the love she had into Lena instead. Dad and I. We never spoke of Olivia again. She had made her choice, and we had made ours. Years later, when Lena was old enough, she asked about her mother. I told her the truth, that Olivia wasn't ready to be a mom, that she left, but that it wasn't Lena's fault, that we had chosen her, because she deserved better. And Lena, bless her heart, just smiled. "I'm happy I have you instead," she said. And that was the moment I realized. Olivia may have spent her life trying to destroy me, but in the end, she gave me the greatest gift of all. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.